Hello everyone, Sientir here with another Rambler for you, and today is going to be the first episode, well not the first episode in the episode sense, but the first episode in the sin series that's talking about one of the 7 deadly sins. So the first one, because I'm going in alphabetical order, is envy. So just as a reminder, the way that I'm approaching this is I'm not looking at so much as what envy is per se, but kind of how it comes about, what it's trying to seek, what I think kind of the origin desire that breeds envy is, if that makes sense. So I spent some time thinking about the various 7 deadly sins. One of the things that was really important is I needed to figure out some of the dividing lines sort of between them. Because, for example, where's the line between envy and greed? These are fairly similar concepts in terms of like wanting things, right? And one of the things that I was kind of looking at with regards to this is sort of a line where envy is more about, and I'm just kind of walking you through because I did some thinking about these because I wanted to figure these out ahead of time so I could kind of make sure I understood how I was approaching these. So as I was kind of thinking through this, one of the major dividing lines I was thinking, it feels like a dividing line between envy and greed is whether or not what you want is something someone else has or something you don't have. And kind of the difference between those is if it's something someone else has, you want it because they have it, or because you see sort of the effects of them having it. Whereas when you want something you don't have, it's that you want more of something you already have, or you feel that you have a lack. It's a bit of a different sort of difference. So it's just kind of thinking through this process and trying to figure out, what does it feel like to me envy is the desire comes from? And I feel like it's wanting sort of a good life. What that means to an individual person, of course, varies depending upon all sorts of things. But it's a good life or an easy life or a happy life. This sort of idea of sort of another way that I kind of phrased it, to be respected and rewarded for who it is and what it can do, for what it has to offer. And I was kind of thinking about it, in a way, it feels like envy suffers a great deal from inferiority. And as thinking about it, feels like it lacks humility and contentment, that it resents others, and it feels cheated or owed something. It can never be satisfied. And I was thinking, okay, why does it feel like envy feels this way? And in large part, it's because it has this picture from someone else of what they think a good life looks like, and it wants that. It sees someone else's art skill, for example, and it craves that, or someone's musical ability, and it craves that, because it feels that if it had it, it would have a better life. It would be, and one of the underlying themes that all of them have is that they all want to be happy. And this sort of happiness is unfortunate because, or this sort of seeking of happiness is unfortunate because it leads to a discontentment with what one has. And sort of as a result of all this, it feels to me like envy will often, maybe not always, but it often will undervalue itself, and it often targets those it admires because it gives them that sort of admiration that it wants, right? It gives them that respect for who they are or what they can do, what they have to offer, and that's something that I feel envy really wants. And some of the thinking here then, or some of the thought process is, what do we, looking in at ourselves, what do we think would make our life a good life, as it were, or a happier life, or a better life? What do we look to others and say, this person has that, I wish I had that? And here's the problem, too, is this envy can turn into things like theft or murder. These sorts of things when it manifests in an action sort of way. It can lead to irresponsible spending. It can lead to irresponsible borrowing, too, which are all sort of very self-destructive things. It's because it's chasing what other people have that it feels that it needs to have to be able to be happy, or to have, like I said, this idea of a good life, the easy life, whatever you want to call it. By the way, just to clarify, not necessarily a good life in the sense of like a morally good life, but in kind of a quality sense. Sort of, what does a good life in terms of a good quality life look like to you? That's kind of an idea to examine and to think about. For example, a lot of people and this is something that society super preys on, by the way, because it tries to push the idea of this is what a good life is supposed to look like. Have this sort of house, have this many kids, have this many pets, have this sort of food, have this sort of body, have this sort of appearance, have these sorts of gadgets and gizmos, and it breeds in us, like advertisements are designed to breed in us, envy for the portrayals on TV, because it portrays something that to us looks like a good life. It looks desirable. And then we can feel envy that we don't have that. And then we try to remedy that by purchasing the item that's being promoted. And this is a huge danger when it preys on us like this, when advertising in particular, but all sorts of things can lead to this. But when advertising is targeted to prey on this by sort of creating an idea that these items will give us something more that we long for this sort of quality of life, where we'll have better relationships and a wonderful spouse and everything will be hunky-dory and happy, and they're selling lies through envy, and not always, but envy is definitely one of them, where we create this dream of what we think a good life looks like, and then we look at somebody else and say, oh, we think they have it and we want that, and if I had that, then my life could be better. And that is kind of at the core, I think, as I'm thinking through this and processing it, that envy looks at something somebody else has and say, their life seems to be better than mine. If I had that thing that they have, my life would be better too. And it's a falsehood. It's built on a falsehood that having that thing makes life better. It doesn't always. Maybe it can improve it, but it really depends upon yourself, and if you're willing to let your life be improved by that, and that requires contentment. And this is sort of the trap with this sort of thing, is having something that somebody else has that you say, oh, that seems so great, that would make my life better because their life is better than mine. Having it doesn't actually guarantee that your life will be better, and often it won't, because that same discontent will just find a new target. It will find something new to latch on to cling to seek. It will do what it can to settle on something else that's making your life less than perfect. And there's always going to be something. There's always going to be something. So this is kind of the danger of envy, is that it tricks us into thinking that having something someone else has will make our life better. And the other thing, too, is it can lead to kind of a very depressed state if we feel that we cannot obtain what the other person has. For example, if we feel my life would be better if I had the art skills that this other person has, but it's not willing to put in the time to develop those skills, right? That's where it can also become a problem. Or where if you beat yourself up, if you're not acquiring those skills, if you're not getting to the same spot, if you're not being identical. And we have to be very careful, too, because I think envy can creep up in other sorts of ways, and almost kind of a backwards way of feeling obligation. I don't know. This is kind of more speculation in terms of like how I'm thinking about it, but something that's coming to my mind is feeling like, oh, somebody else is demonstrating something that seems superior to us, and we feel like we should be that same way. I think that's another kind of form of envy, if that makes sense, where it's not feeling like we can be content as ourselves, that we can't be content as who we are, that we have to become someone else. I think that this can be another form of envy as well. And one of the other things, too, as I was kind of thinking about it, that I was kind of making a comparison to, is that it feels to me like envy is this type of inferiority, whereas pride is the sort of opposite, a superiority. Pride is feeling superior for being yourself. Envy is feeling inferior for being yourself. And envy wants to remedy that state of feeling inferior. Or at least that's one way that I think it can manifest. Anyway, these have been kind of my thoughts on envy. I hope that it can help you sort of do some self-examination, and it certainly has helped me to kind of think about what are the ways in which I'm being tricked or confused or falling into these problems with envy. Until next time, you can follow me and like me on Facebook at facebook.com/SientiersRamblers. You can email me directly at sientir@gmail.com, and you can support me financially on patreon.com/Sientir. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.